In both the first reading and the gospel today, we hear how God wants us to treat others. The book of Leviticus is a law code and ritual, so we hear concrete examples. Moses gives these specific examples of how we should treat others, not for us to earn salvation, but rather for us to live with the attributes of holiness. Moses tells us, you should not lie or speak falsely to one another. You should not defraud or rob your neighbor. You should not withhold the overnight wages of your daily labor. You should not act dishonestly in rendering judgment. You should not commit robbery, and so on. And when we hear these statements from Moses, we think, of course, I know not to steal, defraud, or lie. But during this Lenten season, I believe God is calling us to examine these and focus on how we should live to be the people God calls us to be, to live our daily lives with love for God and others. Speaking of living our daily lives with love, at St. Mary's Catholic School, our spiritual theme this year is from St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. Let all that you do be done in love. This one simple request that St. Paul told the people reflects all that we hear in our readings today. For instance, when we speak the truth and do not speak falsely of others, we are following Jesus' example of showing love to others. Loving others is more than just not harming or defrauding them. It is the way we live and how we help others. Today's gospel calls us to bear witness by serving others through acts of love. God challenges us to step out of our comfort zones and help our neighbors just as He would have helped them. He calls us to help the least of us because Jesus has walked with them and can identify with them. And He wants us to do the same. When Jesus was here on earth, He socialized with sinners, tax collectors, and outcasts of society. Our Catholic social teaching calls us to do the same. During this Lenten season, can you think of ways to feed the hungry? Maybe it's feeding the spiritually hungry, and you invite them to attend Stations of the Cross or Mass with you. Perhaps you could welcome a stranger in your neighborhood, or at church, or at the grocery store. Greet them and genuinely ask them how they're doing. We are all humans, and we want to feel valued and loved by others. When we start offering small but impactful gestures to others, as Jesus called us to do, we live out God's call for us. All of our students at St. Mary's try to live out St. Paul's challenge to the Corinthians every day. During the Lenten season, it is a perfect time to take his challenge to heart, as Lent is a time for self-reflection, serving others, and spending quiet time in prayer with the Lord. Our lives are busy, and it can be difficult to stop and take a few moments to reflect on our words and actions. It is important that we reflect daily on how we treat others, especially if we were abrupt or dismissive with someone. We can reflect on our actions by thinking, is that how Jesus would have acted? What could I have done differently in that situation? Think about what St. Paul said to the Corinthians almost 2,000 years ago. It is as true today as it was back then. My challenge to you this Lenten season is to let all that you do be done in love.